Leo started off as a real estate agent. He actually scaled the cash offer program around the country. He became the #1 singular uno agent in the whole entire Keller Williams franchise out of 100,000 plus agents. Then what he did is he learned software. He recognized, hey, this software thing is like a thing and real estate's really antiquated. He learned how to do that. He built a software company and he sold it to MLS systems. And now he finds himself as the CEO of the largest independent brokerage on the planet, baby. So join me in welcoming Mr. Leo Pareja. Okay.
Apparently I got the memo.
Got the memo. We're actually business owners in the same company. We're like colleagues, right? So I texted him like, hey man, I'm doing this event. I know you're down here. Can you come through? He's like, yeah, let me check my schedule. And bam, we have the CEO of the largest independent brokerage on the planet in the room.
In fairness, South Florida gets a lot more of me than the rest of the country because
Yes.
I try not to leave this time of year.
Exactly. So, and the way I introduced you, I think that that's very true, is that you've been stacking skills. And the first skill that you started stacking was actually selling real estate. Then you started to stack the skill on top of software, right? So maybe you could talk a little bit about that journey of stacking skills, because you could have just easily stayed as the guy who just sells a lot of real estate.
And if I don't sound the same, I feel like I'm coming down with the flu. I went and got tested for everything this morning. I tested negative, but I'm going to go home and go to sleep. But I didn't want to no-show on you guys. So
Yeah. Appreciate you, brother.
So as Aaron said, my journey is identical to yours. I am one of you. I'm still a licensed broker. I'm the only CEO of a publicly traded real estate company that actually sold houses, which is insane to me. Most others came from Goldman Sachs or Deloitte, Capital One. So most of them have never done what you've done. I got licensed at 19 years old. In the 16 years I was actively selling, I sold close to 4,000 homes. In 2010, I was ranked the #1 Keller Williams agent team leader in the world. And that year I sold 603 homes with 10 people on my team. So I like to do a lot with a little. And that year on the Wall Street Journal, I was #5. So 603 homes is not too crazy nowadays with the size teams that exist. But like per person productivity and where the world was, that was kind of unheard of. The part that most people don't know is that year I actually sold closer to 2,400 homes, just not in my name, because I developed a pretty interesting niche. And I was doing foreclosures in 18 markets in 4 time zones.
Yeah. Hey, you know what I always like to say when I hear numbers like this? Like, who's counting? I don't know.
I counted.
I counted, for sure. So, and as you were like, perhaps maybe talk a little bit about the skills that you had to stack in order to do that. Because it's not just what to say and how to say it. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to help somebody buy and sell. What skills did you have to stack on top of that?
So one thing I always like to make sure that people understand is that whatever moment you are in your season of life is your superpower, right? Because as you're sitting here right now, and I say these numbers that don't seem real, that little voice inside your head is talking a lot of shit to you right now. And it's normally something that a parent, someone who's supposed to pour into you, said to you as a kid, right? I'm not smart enough. I don't know how to do that. I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too short, I'm too fat, whatever bullshit you tell yourself. And when I got licensed and started at 19, I looked about 12. And
I have seen the picture. He did look 12, yeah.
I posted it on Facebook if you go look at it, just because some of you don't believe me. And I actually grew this facial hair so people would take me seriously. Now I probably need to shave it because now I look older than my age because of the gray hair. But I sold my first property to myself because I was in college and I got my license. I was working for somebody. And I did it because my landlord decided that on a Tuesday night, I wasn't allowed to be that loud. And I was looking for another rental when the owner of the office said, you should buy a house. And I said, I'm a child. I can't do that. But I got qualified for FHA, 3% down. I begged my parents to lend me the money for 8 hours. I went to settlement, got my commission and paid my parents back, rented out 3 rooms for $500 a piece, and zero-based my mortgage when I was 20 years old. I'd only done one deal. I was going into the sophomore year of college. And I wrote a little script and I practiced it, and I was very nervous, and I called every fraternity brother and I said, let me talk to your parents about their housing for next year. That was the hook to get them on the phone. If I got the parents on the phone, I said, would you like me to show you how to pay for the entire housing with next semester's budget? Right? That's enough to get me an appointment. And then I showed them at an average price point of like $250, 3% down. I could buy a townhouse. And that summer I sold 11 homes and made $60,000.
Yeah. To the parents.
And what that taught me was, if you lean into who you are in the moment you're in, that's your strength. Because I think a lot of people get paralysis by analysis when they hear certain things. I encourage everybody to spend a lot of time with yourself and figure out what your God-given gifts are, what your experience is, because you are unique, and there is a group of humans who can benefit from the skills you have and the life experience you've had. Again, I would rather play in traffic than cold call strangers. It's just not my jam. And it's not good or bad. It's just not how I'm wired, right? Who knows what the DISC profile is? And if you're EXP, you can take it for free through the Success platform. I think of the DISC more of the energy that you have, right? If you've taken it, there's the normal results and then the adapted results under stress. Can you guys guess what my DISC is? 99D, 99I, 1010. A lot of people think I have a really high C. And I don't have any C, but I've got my ass whooped because I don't have a C. So I've now built processes and systems to interact with my personality profile. So like, for example, I have a custom flash report that's sent to me every Friday on how I run this entire company. And it's 10 lines. That's all I need to see. How many agents we added, how many agents we lost, how many transactions we put under contract, how many closings we had, what is our revenue, units, volume, GCI. And by the way, that's how you should run your team. I got that behavior from running a team, right? Because I'm looking for leading indicators and then lagging indicators. So once you realize how you're wired, the problem is that the educational system is broken, right? We're told to work on our weaknesses. Or you get a bad grade, you should go do more of that. When I grow up, I just pay people, and then it's called leverage, and I'm a good business person. But if I did it in high school, I was cheating. The beauty of real estate is that it's a people business. And the coolest part about this business is I've met thousands of people who feed their families doing something they're good at. And the way of prospecting is something they're good at. I would not want to go up against Jeff Quinton calling strangers, right? He is good at it.
He's all right.
But I'm really good at larger scale systems. So I was really good at working with investors. I was really good at working with developers and banks because I understood loss severity, and I could show them how doing certain behaviors gets them higher return on their investment. And so I always just focused on a niche that served that market and with a skill set that jived with me. Does that make sense? Like I never once did any form of direct to consumer, whether it was billboards, cold, outgoing, post, none of that. I always, and across a 16-year career, I would focus on what I called multi-transactional customers. And again, some of you are hearing that and starting to write it down. That doesn't mean it's for you. It worked for me. And that's the beauty of it. This is truly a choose your own adventure, right? I think if you want to do between 500 or 50 to 100 units a year, there's probably 200 successful ways to do that. If you want to do 1,000 deals a year, there's probably 3 or 4 ways. And it tends to be depending on the market cycle we're in, right? In 2009, if you wanted to sell real estate where I lived, it was 70% of the market, not 50 like Aaron said. And it was market dependent. And I got some phone calls from folks. I remember a good friend of mine called me from Huntsville, Alabama, and she said, I want to do REO. I was like, well, let's look at the numbers. And it was 3% of our market, and it was half her average price point. So I was like, there's not enough effort there for you, right? For me, it was like, if I wanted to sell real estate, I had to either represent buyers buying REO or become the REO agent, right? There was not a choice. And one of the things, as we went through the NIR settlement last year, some of you may have heard all my rantings on the internet, that I said is like, you're allowed to be upset because stuff we disagreed with happened. But once the ruling came down, life is 10% what happens and 90% how you choose to react to it. Right? We have the ability to say, I don't want to do this anymore because I think this sucks and I don't have to do it anymore. Or you say, these are the new rules of engagement and I want to be a market participant. I don't even know what you asked me, but I kind of tend to ramble.
Well, and because the things are constantly evolving and changing, to your point, once you recognize what's true, it really sounds like, Leo, what you do in your mind is you're like, okay, well, if this is what's true, here are the options as I see them. Maybe that's just on your own accord, but also triangulating ideas, with people. And then you just deal with it versus hemming and hawing and getting emotional about it and making it like this whole thing.
Absolutely. And I, you're not asking this, but it's in my head, so I'm going to share it with you. So I've been here 3 years now. And when I got here, it was interesting because this is the first job I've ever had. I've always been the founder and CEO. I've built and scaled and sold 3 companies. And when I got here, this was my first time I'm not the founder. And so I joke with Glenn that said, I'm the fun uncle and he's the dad. But the first thing I did was just listen and said, who are we? And what I found out is that we're the single largest brokerage on the planet and we sell more homes than anybody else.
I'm sorry, say that again, the last part. What do we do?
We're the single largest brokerage on the planet by agent count, and we outsell everyone. In 2023, we sold 40% more homes than number 2 at Berkshire Hathaway. We sold twice as many homes as Compass, who like to claim they're number 1 with the asterisk in volume. And we sold 6 times as many homes as Real. Right? We sell lots of houses. That's what we do. And the other thing I looked at was how many people participate in revenue share. Do you guys have any idea what the numbers are?
12%.
14, pretty good guess. And it depends on the month, but like just overall, the bulk of the $198 million we paid out that year went to 14% of the agents. And again,
I was one of them. Yeah, I'm happy about that.
Not good or bad, just is. So the first thing that told me is that 86% of the agents here are here to sell homes. That is the focus. So my one thing over the last 3 years has become operational excellence. Who's been here more than 3 years, 4 years? Are we better at what we do now? It became my one and only North Star. So for example, we have an agent care desk line that is live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Last month, we processed 280,000 tickets and answered 31,000 phone calls in an average of 30 seconds with a 90% resolution score on NPS. In 2024, we dispersed 75% of your... Do you guys get paid fast here? Do you know how much that costs me to do? It's about $30 million of liquid cash that I've set aside for that. Because I understood, you're welcome, that if I paid you as fast as humanly possible, that was the most meaningful thing I could control for you. Right? So just so you know, the way it works is that there's a protocol through the FDIC. We were in the pilot. And in 2024, we were the 3rd highest volume user of it. It's called real-time payment. It's not applicable to all banks. So if you're in the 25% whose bank doesn't do that, you can actually switch your bank account and get paid. Like if you're like, what's he talking about? It takes like 3 days to get paid. It's because your bank doesn't participate in real-time payment. But if you do, and we get a settlement statement and a copy of a check, let's say in the morning, 75% of the checks were dispersed in under 14 minutes last year. Mm-hmm. So I still need to have the human touch the file, but once they touch the file, it's a 14-minute dispersal. And so the way I do that is that even if we're on the other side of the transaction or not holding the escrow, I front you the commission and I don't charge you anything for it.
Thank you.
So I understand your world and that's why I did it, but I also did it strategically. I know that every new real estate company in America is going to look more like us than our predecessors. Is that true?
Yes.
When you look at what franchising is, it's an old technology. A franchise was a way to expand nationally when you didn't have the resources to go everywhere and you needed influence, right? Truly, if you were going to enter a market 20 years ago, you needed a local expert because Aaron couldn't show up in real time in 1080 HD resolution on a Zoom. But we don't need that anymore. And so when you think of your journey mapped to EXPs, there was about a 10-year period where Glenn was trying to convince people of a different way to do things. And it was hard. And I can admit that I laughed when I saw it the first time. And the part that most people don't know is that there was some crazy periods of time of EXP where we actually had to change state laws, right? Like once upon a time, they made us print out every single file to audit it manually because they didn't believe in a digital file. And Glenn convinced them by giving them an admin right, said, audit me whenever you want real time, don't even call me. And we turned out to be better than our brick and mortar competitors. And they changed the law. But something happened, and I think life is 80% being at the right place at the right time, which was COVID. Right? I think the acceleration to virtual would have happened regardless over a 10 or 20 year period, but it was condensed into a 90-day experiment. And we proved it worked. And then we proved it worked. So now every new company says they have rev share, they're national, blah, 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 blah. I actually had the team look, and I found 63 companies the day we did it that claimed the long tail is much longer than you think. So again, okay, if this is the new paradigm, we're now EXP 2.0. That's where this obsession of mine for operational excellence, paying you guys as fast as humanly possible, adding to the value stack, right? Like, all right, I'm going to become the greatest training company on the planet. That's my next North Star. So have you guys gone through FastCap yet? All right, we got some homework assignments here.
Yeah.
So included in your fees, we have a 6-week intensive course that at the Red Company would cost something like $795. This is included. You get a copy of an instance of Sisu, and we teach you how to use it. I have a whole bunch more other things coming because unlike the franchise models, I say Gary Keller and Eric at Remax and Ryan at Anywhere sell franchises, which is effectively a made-up territory, right? Very arbitrary between this corner and that corner. And I say they have more in common with Yum Brands that own Burger King and Tim Hortons than with me. We are the first mega broker to ever exist. Like what we've done has never been done before. As of Friday, as I'm getting ready for earnings calls, we have 2,496 direct full-time employees. That's who supports you. KW, Remax, Anywhere, their corporate staff are like 100 or 200 agents. Because really, who supports the average agent is a small independent business owner, independently owned and operated, right? Which is maybe 2, 3, 4 humans, right? It's not thousands of people supporting you in real time. So it's also being able to pivot, right? So we proved it worked. And the cool thing was we proved it worked. The bad thing is it's like, oh, that works. So how do you differentiate, right? And when you look at category creations, there's moments in history. Netflix disrupted Blockbuster, but they didn't stop there. They now disrupted MGM, right? They're now streaming football, right? And that's where companies need to stay in the forefront. And probably the two best examples I can think of is one was Kodak. Did you know Kodak had the patent to digital photography? Did you guys know that? Their board said if we release this, it's going to eat our golden goose. And they didn't release it. And then it ran out, and then Kodak put them out of business. Steve Jobs had the iPhone, and he goes, I want to release this. And their board said, you will eat the iPod. And the iPod is the highest grossing product with the highest margin we've ever put out in Apple's history. And he goes, okay. And he ate his golden goose and created an entire category, which is now the smartphone. So the cool part is we are the category king, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world in the cloud-based brokerage space. If you were to add the other 62 competitors, they're not even half of us. But we can't fall asleep on our laurels. So that's where you're going to see us tweaking stuff. Glenn likes to say we're forever in beta, which means I'm running experiments all the time. Sometimes stuff works, and sometimes it doesn't, and I throw it away. But sometimes if it works, I lean in.
Yeah.
Again, I forgot what you asked me.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So, based on my time that I've spent with you, like you think, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps ahead. So briefly, I guess if you could, because I want to be respectful of your time, where do you see, because I was talking about how control is being taken away from agents. And when I said that to you on our call before we connected, you're like, oh yeah, it's been happening for like 10 years. Yeah. So as an agent, as a technician, what do you suggest agents do to make sure they keep control?
The good thing is, I think we just lived through a 10-year experiment where $50 billion were thrown at our industry to put you guys out of business. And they failed. And, and I think they failed because of a couple reasons. One is real estate transaction is the single largest investment the average American family makes. Thank you, John. It is highly infrequent. So the average family used to move every 7 years. We're touching closer to 10 or 11 years. And they move 6 times. This is just averages. Obviously, you're going to be like, oh, that's not me. But averages. 3 times as a tenant, 3 times as a homeowner. Starter home, move up home, downsize home. And when you think about the infrequency of that, the world's changed dramatically every single time. And who's bought a primary residence? Do we all turn into emotional puddles and no longer act rational? Yes. All right. I sold real estate in DC, and I remember I sold houses to titans of industry and government. And they were like, oh, this is going to be a financial transaction. I'm like, I don't give a shit what you have to say. Where's your wife? Because at the end of the day, we buy the most we can afford that is most convenient to the lifestyle and the life cycle you're in. Period. End of the discussion. Right? You buy what you can afford. And then is it proximity to school, work, your gym, your in-laws, whatever is important to you. And so what I think the last decade proved is the last mile is impossible to turn into an app. And it has to do with the highly emotional, highly expensive, but also the complexity, right? There is a lot of friction in real estate, more than people want to admit, right? There's over 3,500 counties, cities, municipalities, boroughs that require public record data in this country, right? Mortgages vary differently depending on the collateral, the down payment, title, insurance, all kinds of stuff. So there is a lot of people trying to monetize the transaction, and they have forever. Mm-hmm. You need to think about it one of two ways. You can either pay a success fee and let somebody else generate the lead for you, which, by the way, I don't think necessarily is bad, as long as the end in mind is to build a database that you can nurture. Right? Think of that as just a lead gen strategy for you, because past customers are the best sources of referrals. Right? So if you were to do any one of those success fee businesses that charge 30 to 50% of the commission, do it because you're building a database and that you're going to drip on and you're going to stay in touch with. Because if you just do it for those closings, you will be on a treadmill forever. And the value is not the next transaction, because that's 7 to 11 years away. It's inviting them to the client appreciation parties and saying, hey, do you know anybody who wants to buy or sell real estate? Am I the person you refer them to? Like, ask qualifying questions, follow up, right? So the way you don't get cut out is add a ton of value to people in a database that you stay in touch with, right? Or get hyper niche focused, right? For a 10-year period, I sold every house for the largest investor in my market on the listing side, and I got every referral and every lead they couldn't convert. Like, they attended my wedding. We went skiing together. They knew my kids, my wife. We knew the amount of times they'd call me once a month and say, hey, so-and-so just pitched me on how they're better than you. And they'd laugh, right? Because that was a very tight relationship that you could not circumvent. But it was also super high accountability. Yeah. There was a time my wife and I went to Asia for a month, and the person I left in charge of the account dropped the ball dramatically on a property. Like, pretty bad. On the rehab, we executed, and I got a phone call. It's like, hey, we need to meet next week. And I knew what that call was going to be. And so I looked at our original BPO that we suggested the house would sell for, the money they spent, and I did the math as to what they potentially lost, and it was $28,000. I was supposed to be at their office at 1 o'clock. I wired them $28,000 before I got there. And Judd's like, yeah, this is not going to be a fun conversation. I was like, before we start, we effed up. It's my fault. Check your account. He goes, well, let's go to lunch. This did not go how I expected it.
Yeah.
But that single customer was worth $350,000 in GCI to me per year. Right? So you have to take extreme ownership as well.
Yeah. So if you're going to go down that path, I love the euphemistic success fee. Yeah. Do it with the recognition that this is a long game. And then also, like we were discussing, is have what you just described as a niche. And what I said was like the riches are in the niches. So at that time, they were gobbling up properties because of the context of the market. So you just focused on that niche, just like I did with probate, because I live in Heaven's waiting room. So we went into that and did a bunch of transactions there. And that would be your recommendation to maintain control.
I mean, there's a couple ways, right?
Yeah.
There's niches. I mean, as simple as it sounds, sphere of influence database to your known contacts is probably the best, easiest, cheapest.
Yeah.
If you think about it, we live in the most amazing time to do this, right? Once upon a time, I'd go to Brian Buffini seminars, and it was like pop buys, monthly item of values, and then, oh, by the way, do you know anyone who's looking to buy or sell real estate? In every conversation I had. Now I can do it just by posting on Instagram. You can literally follow everyone back, comment about their kids, not because you're checking a box, because you're taking a genuine interest in who they are as human beings. They've gotten to know you. The amount of people that come up to me like, how's Ariana, how are their kids? It's like, you guys think you know me because I've shared my life with you. And it's the same thing for you guys. And you get to know your buyers and sellers. I mean, what's a better time to know? Like, I can see if you were pregnant on the internet. That is a life event that triggers.
I'll make sure first before I ask you. You know what I'm saying?
I'll wait for the gender reveal.
Yeah, I'll wait for the gender reveal.
But if someone does a gender reveal, I'd be taking them to lunch. So, what's going on? I'm telling you, statistically, they're going to trigger a move, right? Someone's congratulating their child graduating from college or high school. That is going to trigger a move.
Yeah, right? So it's like this mixture of like old and new. Because when we were at dinner the other night, and I was like, you realize, like, if let's say me and Leo had a fantastic idea 250 years ago, you know who we were limited to tell that idea to? Our village. That's it. Now we have these platforms where, raise your hands, how many people came from out of the state of Florida? Media is the mechanism that made that happen. Do you understand? And so it's this mixture of this old school, like Gary Vee says, like the way your grandparents used to do business. Of like, hey, what's going on? Or hey, like, you know, Eddie here, I saw he got married. So you know what's the first thing I said to you when I saw you? Yeah, well, congratulations, are you gonna have kids? You know what I'm saying? I know you're getting that static, right? But because that's old school. The new school is me sending a digital version of myself into the world to have conversations with all you guys. Because how do we decide if we like somebody? We talk to them. And then we share ideas, we listen, and then we form a what? Relationship. In that world, it's just a parasocial relationship, but then guess what happens? Raise the hands, everybody from out of the state. It turns into a real one, guys. So it's a mixture of those two worlds is what you're saying. Is that right?
Absolutely. There's also an aspect of doing the belly-to-belly work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I get to talk to one-to-many. Like, I got on with an agent yesterday who said, I've listened to 1,000 hours of your podcast, which was slightly creepy. But he knew my whole life story. Yeah. Because he chose to, like, he's going to join very large team. But he listened to Robert, and he listened to Sharon, and he listened to Gary. So we all have this body of work out there that is now the first interview. By the way, buyers and sellers, when they actually call you, they've already interviewed you. They've checked your Google, they've checked your podcast, they've checked everything. You have to have demonstrated competence with your digital advertisements.
I got this text Saturday while I'm at my son's soccer game. Here's what it says. Hi, Aaron. I'm an independent agent in Westchester County, New York, located directly north of NYC. I'm thinking of joining EXP. Are you still sponsoring agents? No, I have enough. No, I'm good. Yeah. But listen to what he says now. I love your content. It has brought me so much value, and it has made me a better agent. Yeah. I'm considering this a sponsor at EXP. Your name is a no-brainer for me. Let me know. So what you're saying, I know it's true. The same way I know the sky is blue and the grass is green. And if you position yourself as a guide to help people to solve their problems, they will invite you into their story. So this guy's inviting you into his story. He sees you as a guide to solve his problem because you've run big teams or whatever. And then that conversation's how many questions do you think that guy asked me about partnering? You think there was tons of objections? You know what he said? How do I start? Right? And that's what you're saying.
But it doesn't change the fact that I'm here with you about it.
That's right.
It doesn't change the fact that we've done probably 2-3 podcasts.
Exactly.
We've met up in Miami several times because you need to figure out who the force multipliers in your world are. Like I can probably have a 1-to-1 relationship with roughly 500 humans at a time. And it could be, 1 text a quarter or 3 phone calls a week, depending on who they are in my world. And so when you think of lead gen and your teams and your structures and you grow, it's like, who do you pour into and get a force multiplier? For me, it tends to be the biggest producers and the biggest attractors because they are the biggest advertisements of us. And so I need to hear the problems that we have at the ground level. And of course, if they sell 400 homes, our signs become a force multiplier. People go, that's a lot of EXP signs I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. So, and again, that's no different than when I sold homes. Right? That was, I would fly to Dallas and take my asset managers to dinner. Right? And it was just to get to know them, talk about their kids. Right? Because when the next person said, hey, I'm better than Leo, it's like, yeah, tell me how. Right? Because I know his systems. He comes and visits. I know Ariana. I know the kids. Like, I get invited to events. How are you better? Mm-hmm. And it was a very different conversation because I created real rapport.
Yeah. I love that, man. And that's really what you're doing here.
That's exactly what I'm doing here.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing here.
Because now you see me as a human being.
Yeah.
Like I remember one time I got a call during REO and we had a nice conversation. He goes, wow, you're not a dick. I was like, thanks.
I know.
I was like, why would you assume I was? Because he's like, well, you have like 2% of the entire market. Like you have more listings than everybody else. And I've heard other agents not say very nice things about you.
Yeah.
But you're actually a really nice guy.
Yeah. And what I can attest to too is that because I was with a different company for 15 years and the kind of top of that company, bro, it's like a gut, like, nope, you got a special meeting, special invite, like you don't get anywhere close to them, right? Special mastermind. And because of the way this is structured, like we're owners. So this is just a meeting of owners.
Well, and I will say that you do need to create exclusivity and value, right? So I do have invite meetings that are very special, but then who sells $3 million or $4 million a year as a solo producer?
Or more.
How many of you got a direct invite from me about joining me next week with Jared James for an hour? Yeah, so if you qualify for different things, I can scale certain things digitally and then I can scale less in person.
Well, and here's what's really cool is like, how can you apply this strategy to your business? You could look at your database, be like, yo, who's transacted with me multiple times? Can I do
multiple referrals?
And multiple referrals. Can I do something special for them? Yes. So he's basically giving you the blueprint on how to like multiply your business. Like, what
there's a broker that I'm going to get who currently has a flag.
Yeah.
And I know their franchise agreement's up. And he blew me off, said, hey, I'm having my 3rd kid. Yeah. Like I need to get, he hasn't gotten it to his office yet because I have the tracker on it, but I just sent jerseys. I sent an EXP jersey with his name and 3 little ones for his kids. Like, if I'm competing against Sharon and Robert and Gary, what do you think that impact's going to have?
Yeah, huge.
Right? How do you wow people in your world? Right? And if I execute, he's going to bring 150 agents with him.
Let's go.
Right? So I spend my time where I can have maximum impact at all times, right? Like, as much as I want to do one-on-ones, this is maximum impact for me. If somebody, like, most of the time I'm like, get 100 people in a room and I'll pretty much come anywhere.
Yeah.
Because this is the best way for me to scale my impact.
And it's the best way for you to scale your impact. Yeah? It's stages, physical stages, digital stages, mixture of the old with the new. And how many people feel like he's made some impact today? Yes? Show of hands? Yeah. Love it. So I want to be respectful of you. I know you're not feeling 100%. Thank you for spending the time with us. We appreciate your presence. I appreciate your leadership. I appreciate your support because I just texted you and you're like, let's go. So
if I can, right? I say no a lot, and it's not that I don't want to. It's just I'm in another city or I'm booked.
Yeah, but not to me. He doesn't say no to me.
Work.
Yeah.
So to Aaron's credit, he drives down and meets me right near my house most of the time.
Yeah, that's right. So when he says, hey, do you want to do this? What's the answer? Yes. Immediately drop everything you're doing and go do it because that's that old school stuff. So let's give him a huge round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. in our previous episode. That's a weight loss program because you'll starve to death. You need to get a real job that has benefits. I'm role playing twice a day, 6 days a week, and I'm handwriting out stuff.